Hello, everyone, and how are you today? We are back for another episode of the Wired for Success podcast with my colleague Steve Costello and myself, Patience Modevi. So last week we gave you a little bit of an aperçu of what we were going to do this week. So this week we want to kind of talk about all the things that happen in January that can create a little bit more stress and how this is linked to the way as well we communicate as parents with our teens. So we want to discuss a little bit. So from what I know, a few people are right now in the midst of exams, in the midst of looking for new schools. So they're applying for new school. There's a long process. The process is as tedious for the child as it is for the parents. It's there's no easy fix there. And unfortunately, this doesn't life doesn't stop as a parent, you still have to go on and do the work. And maybe this month, you need to do extra work because you need to compensate since it's been Christmas and all. You know, there's so many things. And I've spoken to one parent recently who is doing extra work and overtime at work just because she wants to make sure her children's got tuition for math or for science because they have exams or this and that. And all of this creates extra tension. This tension then affects the way you relate with other people, your relationships with your children, your relationship maybe with your spouse, or even with your broader family. And this creates again more tension. So all we're talking about really is not really exams. The problem is all the little tasks that unfortunately we can't do without, and we have to go through those. It's like there is a period where you have to go through this journey, and unfortunately that journey is unavoidable. So what we're going to talk about today is how to be aware, first of all, of how all of this is affecting you, all of this is affecting your child, and then also how you can communicate in a way that actually will ease the journey rather than make it even more stressful. So, Steve, what do you think?
Brilliant. Well, I've got a lot to think about that. That one patient. That's not usual. However, first of all, I just want to mention our free group that started on the 27th of January. It's a group for parents of teens in particular, and it's a group that will talk about the things that Patience has mentioned already here today. It'll enable people who join the group, remember it's free, it'll enable those people to talk in some detail about that stuff and how they feel and how it's affecting them, and to get support from other parents and from patients and myself as professionals. And between us, we have too many years' experience. Let's keep it swift. Let's keep it simple. So we've got a lot of experience of this stuff. So 27th of January, watch out for the posts in our Facebook group in particular, and there'll be mentions in other places. So watch out for those posts because they will direct you. They'll enable you to join the group. Remember, it's free. No money involved, just a bit of time. Okay, so going back to what Patience has been talking about, there's an awful lot going on. We've said this so many times. Parents are busy. Parents have got jobs. Some parents I know have more than one job. And they're kind of balancing all these things. And it's almost like you've got these balls going up and down in the air, and then we're catching them and keeping them moving. And we've got to think about dinner. We've got to think about exams at school. We've got to think about the new school. All of that stuff. If you put it all together in your head at the same time, it's going to blow your mind
Hmm.
because it's not good for us. So we need to be aware of some stuff, though. Things like developmental changes in young people, adolescence in particular. Adolescence is a period of amazing growth. There's intellectual growth, there's physical growth, there's all kinds of things going on, and it's confusing and it's difficult. Some teams seem to kind of sail through it quite nicely, and it's not a big deal. others struggle. And there's all kinds of reasons for this. There's an interesting bit of research that talks about brain development, and we're talking about now rapid brain development, not something that happens slowly overnight. It's really quick, bang, bang, bang. And all of this brain development in particular is happening in the prefrontal cortex. And that area of the brain governs things like decision making, impulse control. It helps to regulate emotions as well. So there's all of that going on. Then all of the practical stuff is going on at the same time. And then there's peers. And in peer groups, we often find young people participating in things like risk-taking behaviors. Well, sometimes these risk-taking behaviors are because of what's going on up here. They're actually part of the process. They're not because the young people involved are naughty. That's not what it's about. There's all kinds of things happening. So we need to be aware of this and we need to try to empathize with it. We've been through it too, to greater or lesser levels. We've all been through it, so let's try and think back a bit. But that's an area that we can talk about in the free group. And then patients mention communication. There's a journal called the Journal of Adolescence, which is pretty good. If anybody's interested, give me a shout and I'll direct you to it. In the Journal of Adolescence, a couple of years ago, they talked about parental warmth, I can't say the word, parental warmth and open. And then another one, we've talked about work. We've talked about some parents having more than one job to go to. So work-life balance is sometimes really challenging. I spoke with a parent last week who is struggling with work-life balance. And it's noticeable in the behavior of her son. She's a single parent with one son, but his behavior is quite noticeable. And I believe much of that is because of the lack of work-life balance. You can't blame the parents, not entirely, although the parents we as parents do have a responsibility to look after and try to manage our work-life balance so that it's positive. Another study found that where there is positive parental work-life balance, that's associated with higher family satisfaction. And we all want that, right?
We do.
It's also associated with adolescent well-being. So there are really good reasons for these things. You hear or you see on social media, for example, a lot of people talk about work-life balance. It's not a little twee comments that people use. There's an awful lot within it and behind it that we need to be aware of. So we can study some of those in the free group. And we'll also be able to share ways of managing. How can we manage our work-life balance? What can we do to change it? We have many of the solutions. But the good thing about groups, when you get 20 people or more into a room, you've got some amazing ideas, and that is very, very positive. So patience, where are we going next?
I'm really looking forward to the group. And it just takes me to, so in Africa, there's this kind of like proverb, or I don't know if it's like a way of life, but it's called, they always say, it takes a village to bring up a child. So for a child to become an adult, it takes a village. And for me, this community, this group, the Facebook group, and the community that's going to be in there is exactly that. So for parents, it's going to be your village to come and to really pour out what you need to pour out, but also to take what you need to take so that you can be inspired to support your children better and support yourself better. Because ultimately, if your children are better, I'm sure you will be really, you will be better as well. Now, we're not all the time saying, I mean, just to quickly say, we're not saying that things always go wrong with our teenagers. No. But what we're saying is that there's difficulties, there's ups and downs. So being there in a community that supports you and also understanding what other tools you can put in and or things that you can try, techniques you can try to support your children, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that we hear. So Steve and I, with our clients, I remember one time I heard this mom say that I told him, I told her, are you stupid? And you know, when I heard that, I thought like, oh, straight away, I had like, oh, red flags, you know? And that's exactly, you know, things that you can say. We're not saying that you have to be not being yourself. You always have to be yourself. But the thing is, we need to also take accountability that when we say something or when we communicate something, there will be a reaction to what we are communicating. And often it's not only the verbal communication, is your communication as a whole that can create you know, frictions in the relationships.
Yeah.
And this is what we want to develop, talking a little bit more at the beginning, you know. But to come back to today, to come back to today and right here, right now, um, in this, in when you are, this is a question for parents. When you are in a difficult, a challenging period of your life, how do you think it affects your children? That's one. And second, do you even know that there's an impact on your children? Because some parents don't have even a knowledge that their emotional, um, mental well-being or even physical well-being is affecting their children. So do you have that impact? I think that's a really important question to ask yourself.
Absolutely. That is a big one.
Yeah.
And there's a simple thing we can do as parents as well. You know, we talked about work-life balance and busyness and lots of jobs and children's exams and
Mm.
new schools, all of that stuff happening. But despite all of that, if we prioritize moments together, so we're not talking about a few hours, we're talking about moments, little moments that could be, for example, it could be a family meal, sitting down to eat together. It could be a trip, it could be a weekend outing, a day trip to the beach, whatever. Or it could even be watching a favorite TV show. I remember when my children were much younger, we on a Saturday evening we used to watch a thing called, I've just forgotten. It was about witches. It was an American sitcom. Wasn't great watching, but we did it together. The kids loved it,
Is
and
it
that
bewitching?
no, it wasn't Bewitched. So I nearly said that, but it was something else. But anyway, it was a moment that lasted about 40 minutes, and it was good, and it made us laugh, and it was usually quite funny, you know. So it was a really nice moment. So that's one challenge. Find some moments in your busy schedule that you can spend and devote to your team. That's the first one. We need to be present in those small moments, though. It's no good sitting with the kids to watch a thing about a comedy about witches on television if you're sat on social media chatting to your friends. That doesn't work. So we need to be present in those small moments. We need to be available. We need to be attentive. We need to be listening. There may be some things that are being said that we need to actually just get involved with. Might not be deep and serious, but little things sometimes make a big difference. All of that, all of those are really positive ways. So that's two challenges in addition to answering the questions that patients have. You know, so that's kind of homework. I'd love to hear some comments about how people are going to get on with this because I think that could be quite interesting.
You know,
Patient, sorry.
ultimately, what I love to remind young people, is that as a parent, you're always doing your best. You're always doing your best. But because you're doing your best doesn't mean that there's no little bit of mishap here and there. So it's how to create, like Steve was saying, those moments, but also to check yourself, check yourself. Like, let's be honest, in the morning, everything is chaotic, everyone is running everywhere and asking mom or dad, I haven't seen this. Oh, where did you put this again? All of those kind of things it's not going to bring a smoother a smoother kind of like start of the day. So just check yourself when you can see that it's going a little bit too much, and you just have to go like, oh, where am I going with this right now? Is that
Yeah,
the right space? And don't forget that you are going, let's say you're going to work, you're going to have a brand new day, you're going to work. You don't want to go to work having all this happening in your head. It's the same thing. Your children don't want to be going to school when they've had an argument with yourself in the morning because they couldn't find their socks. So, and this is a really, really small example, but basically it's little things like this that adds up and become a bigger challenges.
yeah. So one of the things that kind of was under the surface of what you were talking about just now, Patience, the idea of self-care for parents. How many parents, if we had a lot of parents in the room right now, how many would put their hands up if I said, how many take care of yourself? And I don't think the majority of hands would go up because
Mm,
they're too busy taking care of everything else. But self-care is really crucial. It helps us to be an effective parent. So we need to find ways to balance our well-being with our responsibilities. So what can we do? We can book in, we can do it in our heads or in a diary, in an electronic diary, whatever, book in some time to go for
mm,
a walk in the park, to go for a walk by the river. Today, this morning, I went for a walk by the river
mm,
for about 25 minutes, not long. And I needed that time. It was really cold. It was amazing. Everything was white, and I felt great when I got back. And I wasn't, even though as cold as it was, I didn't feel cold, which was really positive. The American Psychological Association did some research relating to parental stress. And one of the things that they came up with was that parental stress directly, and patients who just said this, parental stress directly affects the family environment and team behavior.
mm,
And it truly does. I've got a little example from yesterday evening with my grandson who's 4 years old. So my partner was struggling with something on her laptop, something for work. She needed me to help. She was getting really quite stressed about it because it was a big deal. So I stepped in to help. I started getting stressed because there were too many voices in the room at the same time. What was happening on the screen in front of me wasn't right. Something needed to be done. I knew what to do, but I couldn't focus because of all the noise in the room. And then my 4-year-old grandson started getting naughty, is the best way to put it. He tried to slap the laptop a couple of times. He's not a naughty child, but he tried to slap the laptop a couple of times. I asked him not to do that, but I had to raise my voice slightly. And then he tried to close the laptop, which I didn't want him to do at that point. So the whole thing became a little ball of stress for all of us. And it wasn't good. So I had to stop everything and we had to bring everything back to ground. And we did that, and it took a while. I had to tell everybody to be quiet for a minute, but it worked. So we took that time to look after me, to look after him, to look after the women in the room. There's three of them at the time. So we had to calm it all down. And sometimes we don't do that. We just charge through it, and we'll leave kind of a load of debris behind us. And that's not good for us. It's not good for anybody involved. So have a think about it. What can you do to care for yourself? Some people like to kick a ball around. I've got a friend who likes to play football on a Sunday morning. He's 68 years of age. He still plays football on a Sunday morning because it relieves stress for him, which is brilliant. I love it. So maybe as parents, we don't want to go and play football. We may want to do something else, but let's find those things and do them.
And yeah, and it could this could be like having a cup of tea, taking 5 minutes that is only you, yourself, and your tea,
Yeah,
and having that peace of mind at that time. There's something, hold on. There's something as well like that we need to think about even when thinking about self-care. So how can you bring more self-care to yourself? So self-care is about everything. So obviously, if you have problem with bills that needs to be paid and things like that, that's going to be an extra stress that is there. If you having, for example, um, you a cough or cold at the moment, that's going to add an extra stress. So there's things that we can control, like what Steve was talking about, like obviously yesterday, he had to take steps, and he was able to really quickly, fairly quickly, resolve the challenge. But sometimes there's things from outside of our control that also come in that we need to take care of, and that's also self-care.
yeah,
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
yeah. It
Yes.
does. Yeah,
Yeah. That's also self-care. So when you're thinking of the self-care, it's not just thinking of like, oh, I'm taking a time for myself. It's really thinking of, okay, in my environment right now, what is it that I can tweak, wherever I can tweak it, so that I'm able to function in a way that I feel balanced. And then I can react, I can communicate in a better way with, my children. So this is things that we can go a little bit more in when we do more of the lives, or give you exercises to do.
yeah. Brilliant. So finally, I'm just going to mention the free group once more. The free group, when it goes live on the 27th of January, will be a private group, so no outsiders will be able to get in there. And within that private group each week, there'll be a theme, just a general theme. It's not a hard and fast thing. So, for example, in the first week, one of the things we're going to be pushing around is the idea of communication between parents and teens, in particular, teens to parents as well. So we'll chat fairly generally about those things. And then after a week, we'll have a live event where everybody will be invited into a room where we can all see one another, and we'll talk in more detail about those things. We're not just going to be talking, though. We will share tools and things that you can use and apply in your own lives, or adapt sometimes, because sometimes tools don't work perfectly. You need to adapt them to suit your situation. So we'll be doing loads of that as well. So that's going to be week one, and the rest will come later. Much of the content will be defined by the group. So if the group brings us particular points that need to be managed, then that is exactly what we're going to do. It's a safe environment, it's an empathic environment, and it's a very positive environment. And like I said, it's private, so strangers can't come wandering in and join the show, as it were, or disrupt, as I hear sometimes happens. That's
Which
it from me.
That is really good. Just to, again, as I'm going to point out, only 20 parents will be able to join us in the group. We don't want the group to be overwhelming. We want to be able to give you support. So the idea is that it becomes a fairly small, but really small but mighty. So small, but we give you a lot of support, and then you can use that to better your relationship with your children. So yeah, so I think that will be it for today. We can't wait for you to come next week. So we have a little bit more news than that, huh? It's not just the group coming up. So we're gonna have an Instagram page soon coming up as well. You're gonna be able to see little shorts of videos that we have. We would like you, if you can, share, like, and subscribe to our channel, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram. And also tell us what you want us to talk about. We're always welcome for that. And if you need support, you know that our services are here for you and we can help you support your children. So we'll see you next week. You take care. See
Take care, everybody. Bye for now.
you.